SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay. Next, we come to the last part of the World Heritage Sites. We have been discussing about the various aspects of the World Heritage Sites, about the attributes and how they are enlisted, what are the criteria. Today, we will talk about something else, which is the management. Now, let us see this news item. It says that the World Heritage Committee sounds the alarm for Cologne Cathedral Tuesday 6 July 2004, and the committee sounded the alarm for the integrity of the urban landscape around the Cologne Cathedral after hearing of the construction of several high-rise structures or buildings on the bank of the river Rhine, along which it is located opposite the cathedral, which was inscribed on the World Heritage List in 1996. Now, what was, if you remember those red marks which shows that the World Heritage sites which are in danger. So, the UNESCO committee is talking about that, putting this particular cathedral on that list. Why? If you see here that this along the river, this is the position of the cathedral, and this is the area which is the buffer zone of the river and of the site. Now, there are some constructions were happening, and what is so much why they were so concerned about that? Here you can see that this is the cathedral on this side of the river, and this is the high rise structures which were planned. So, plans to erect those 5 new high rise tower blocks in the immediate vicinity of the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the cathedral which was added to the list, it put it in danger. Now, here you can see that this is the cathedral and the structures around that, and this was happening on the other side. So, this is what is the existing urban landscape and which was threatened because of this construction of this high rise structure. As a result of that, it was decided that there will be a visual impact study of that high rise structures in Cologne. So, we are not only talking about the structures which are enlisted in the World Heritage Sites, we are also talking about something which is happening in the close vicinity of the protected site. Another example, Dresden is deleted from UNESCO's World Heritage List in the year 2009. Dresden, that particular site was for a valley which was for quite a long stretch, and there this bridge which was constructed for the convenience of the people and other thing, and that actually put it on the danger list, and ultimately it was deleted from the UNESCO's World Heritage List. What has happened is that on June 25th, 2009, the committee of the UNESCO voted to remove the status of the World Heritage Sites of the Dresden Valley on the basis of that particular bridge that was under construction since 2007. And because that would bisect the valley. The 20-kilometer long site had been selected as a World Heritage Site in 2004. Now, let us see what committee talks about that. The committee says the World Heritage Committee decided to remove the Germany's Dresden valleys from the UNESCO World Heritage List due to building of a 4-lane bridge in the heart of the cultural landscape, which meant that the property failed to keep is outstanding universal value as inscribed. And you can see here that this is the long stretch of 20 kilometer of the area of the valley, and which was threatened, and ultimately it was taken out of the World Heritage List. So, we must understand that when we talked about the World Heritage, the outstanding universal value, we said there are three pillars. One is that which meets the criteria. The second, we talked about the last lecture, integrity and authenticity, and then is the protection and the management. This is the third pillar of this universal value, outstanding universal value, or OUV of a World Heritage Site. And if that is not done, it probably first of all it will not be inscribed in the World Heritage List, and if there is some later some issues developed about that, then it can be taken out of the World Heritage List. So, today we will talk about these issues about protection and the management of the OUV or the World Heritage List. And there are many sort of guidelines you can see from that UNESCO World Heritage Sites. This is one which is of particular importance, the Managing Cultural World Heritage, and it totally talks about that how the World Heritage Sites can be managed. Again, I am saying that it is not important for only the World Heritage Sites, it is also important for any other site which is of heritage significance. Now, let us talk about the protection and the management, what it really means. A focus of management of a World Heritage Site property is the attributes and features which are associated with or convey the potential outstanding universal value of the property. So, we are talking about those attributes and the properties. It is not that everywhere if something happens or a high rise structure comes up, it will be taken out from the list. It has a very important role or connection with those particular attributes and features for which that particular site was inscribed. And if anything which happens which actually contradicts those values or those properties and the attributes, and then only these types of problem or the issues come up. So, the aim of this protection and management is that to ensure that the value, authenticity and integrity of the property are sustained for the future. So, for those property, for those attributes or values for which it was inscribed, that should be sustained for the future through a mechanism to undertake impact assessment for proposed changes, developments and intervention. So, we are talking about that mechanism which sort of should protect, should preserve these attributes, and that is why we have to also see that how these assessment or impact assessment happens. This is an integral part of the protection and the management. Now, here you can see that when we are talking about the protection and the management, we are not talking about only the protected part. There can be many other sort of non-protected areas can be there. There can be a surrounding which is not a World Heritage Site. We are talking about a buffer zone, we will talk about that in detail. Then there is talking about some of the extension, and B which is the protected there. So, when we are talking about a protected area, whether World Heritage Sites or otherwise, we are also talking about that there are many other things which are related to these attributes, values and significance of a protected area. So, in the case of World Heritage Sites, protecting the attributes that reflect the OUV or the outstanding universal value will be a primary objective, but it cannot be the sole one. Let us see what he is talking about. In the management planning process, a management plan will address the overall cultural values of a property and the changes in the immediate vicinity of the property that might have an impact on them. Please remember that we are talking about a protected site, and we are talking about some changes like we have seen in those cases in Germany and Dresden of the cathedral, that some changes were happening in the immediate vicinity, and the changes are likely to happen because these are not museum pieces, they are in an urban landscape, and where because of several reasons the changes are likely to happen. The question is not the changes, the question is that how these changes are affecting the values, attributes and the feature for which they are inscribed as the World Heritage Site or a protected site. So, one must remember that this is very important, that no change will happen in the immediate vicinity, that is never the issue. And also it goes on saying that this inclusive approach, it should be an inclusive approach, is one of the qualities of the management planning approach, since it requires the links with the other plans. Because when we are talking about not only the heritage property, we are talking about unprotected site or locally protected site or buffer area, there will be many other authorities will be involved in the planning of those areas, or there can be some locally protected sites which will come under a different authority or different planning requirement. So, what it is talking about is an inclusive approach which will try to link with other local or regional land use planning or development plans and stakeholders outside the heritage system. So, this one must remember that it is never saying that it should be frozen, nothing can be done around that area, but it is talking about changes will happen, but the management of the change is what is very important. So, the management planning beyond the physical confines of the property aims to better protect the OAV and other cultural values and to secure those benefits to society that the heritage can offer and that the property can gain from greater community involvement. So, it is not only the physical environment it is talking about, it is also talking about the stakeholders, where the community is a very important part. The all type of people who are staying there, who are coming to visit that, who are working there, they are very much involved. So, the community involvement is very important part of that. And it is also saying that if something is of a valuable, something is of a significance, and then if you can sort of better protect it, then it will likely and definitely will have a far reaching impact in terms of benefit, not only to that site, but also to the community itself. And because even if we talk about the World Heritage Sites, if the values for which it is inscribed, it remains and which is of outstanding significance, then it will continue to sort of enhance, have more visitors and have more awareness, the community will gain a lot of that. So, it is a long term benefit which is talking about. So, when we are talking about the inclusive approach, we are not only talking about the greater part of the outside part of that, but we are talking about also the community. It is something like when you have a very important, something very valuable, and this valuable thing you like to sort of cover it, protect it and keep it very in a protected way, so that it does not get damaged. But at the same time, if you, for example, if you have a very valuable stone and then you will protect it, you will keep it safely so that it does not get damaged, but at the same time you will not like to put it always in a bank vault, you will like to probably show it to your friends, family and other things. So, it is something like that, that one has to share it, one has to also take care of that, but also one has to see that the values, attributes and features are maintained and they are preserved. So, the World Heritage Management, actually the management of a World Heritage Site is based on the detailed analysis. So, there is a process involved. So, it is based on the detailed analysis of its significance as identified during the nomination procedure, and management includes the following aspects. Let us see. First of all, ensuring that all of the site staff understand the cultural values to be preserved in the site. So, there must be the people who are involved, the site staff, they should have a clear understanding of the values. Providing specific guidelines upon statement of significance of the site. As you remember that the statement of significance is very important, and there should be some very specific guidelines which is related to the statement for that particular site. Making a complete inventory of all cultural resources within the site. Now, we are talking about the protected area. So, this inventory and their status is very important to have a complete documentation of them as available to the staff, the people who are taking care of the property, and arranging for regular inspection and formal reports by professional with suitable qualification and experience. That regular monitoring is a very important part of the management, that once it is inscribed, and there will be a pressure, there will be some sort of a threats and other things, and also one has to take care of that. So, regular maintenance monitoring is very important, and there should be a monitoring process should be a part of these management guidelines. Drafting a strategic maintenance plan, and that is what I was talking about, that how it should be done, what should be checked, there should be a very clear cut, very transparent process should be laid down. Drafting a strategic maintenance plan leading to the formulation of resource projects, which are incorporated into an annual work program according to their priority, and respecting in all work the ethics of conservation. We have talked about ethics of conservation in great detail. So, this maintenance and the annual maintenance plan should keep in mind the ethics of conservation, that which are the international recommendation by UNESCO and the Venice Charter. So, this is what should be done about the maintenance and the management of the protected site. And I am just giving one by one the different, if you go to the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, these are all available, these documents are available, these are very good guidelines, where they are talking about the cultural heritage, the management is also talks about the risk preparedness, it also talks about the modern heritage, it talks about the different types of disaster, it is talks about the cultural landscape, there is many historic cities which talks about. So, there are detailed manuals which are there, and the reports which clearly talks about the varied types of heritage sites and what are the issues and criteria with best practices. So, one can sort of refer, you should refer to this and can see that what is they are talking about. Now, let us see what are the common issues of the management. There again these two important, the managing a natural world heritage site and managing a cultural heritage site. These are very two important manuals which are there, which are freely you can download that, and so these are very good important. Now, see the common issues. What are the common issues which happens in the management? In recognizing the diversity mentioned above, common elements in effective system could include a thorough shared understanding about the property by all the stakeholders. It is not only should remain with the experts domain, it should the community and all types of community, including the children. It is very important to have an awareness of the people who are there, who are the stakeholders of the site. A cycle of planning, implementation, monitoring, evaluation and feedback. This is a continuous process that should go on, and there about the how implementation it should be implemented, it should be a monitoring, there should be a feedback of what is happening. The monitoring and assessment of the impacts of train changes and as proposed intervention. So, for example, if you remember, I was talking about Ranikiva railway line is proposed, if that act is amended, then what will be the impact? One should very objectively try to see visual impact, the impact due to the pollution, impact due to the vibration. It should be very scientifically first understood and before such intervention take place. So, impact assessment is a very important part of this management process. The involvement of the partners and stakeholders. Partners means that it is no longer the responsibility of only one authority. It should be a responsibility of the local authority, the national authority, the planning authority and also the international authority. If it is a disaster management, then the people who are talking about the different types of disaster experts. So, it is an involvement of, and also why partners, because it is not only the stakeholders, but the partners that responsibility of protecting the world heritage or maintaining the world heritage site should also be taken. There should be a concerted effort by that nationally, internationally and locally. We will take one of the example today, and where we will talk about this partnership, that how it can really help in the management. The allocation of necessary resources is the resource is a very important part, because without the proper resources, finance, so not only the finance, but technical resources, the manpower, the know-how, all types of resources are very important, the knowledge, they are very important for the management process, and but financial definitely is a very important part. and the capacity building, that until and unless people are trained to take care, and there are different types of skills depending on a particular site which is required. So, this capacity building is a very important part of maintenance and management. It has to be sort of integrated within the management system. An accountable, transparent description of how the management system functions. This is absolutely important. I said that conservation and taking care of our heritage is like we are a custodian. So, everything should be accountable, should be well documented, should be transparent, should be shared with others, to the community, if required exhibitions, talking to the people, debate. All these things are very important part of the management process. Let us see that we are talking about the property, that what is that buffer zone and other. Here you can see that if this is a property, the delineation of the property, which is the actual boundary, is very important. The boundary does not mean always it will be a fence or it will be a physical thing, but the delineation of that boundary on ground is absolutely very important to understand. So, the property is the land or the sea area which has an outstanding universal value. It can be one single property, it can be a group of properties. Earlier we used to use the term core zone, but now it is out of date and we generally refer to the property. So, here you can see that red mark, that is actually delineated, that how much is actually the property. So, the boundary must encompass the outstanding universal value. So, that means if suppose there is a structure and there is a land area or the garden and other thing. So, and that actually contributes to the outstanding universal value. So, that must be inscribed within that property boundary, and it may so happen that the ownership of this different land parcel may not be with only one authority, it can be with the different people, person or authorities or agencies, but that does not stop anything. One must sort of clearly lay down this delineation. So, delineation itself is a process. Now, as you can see that when we are talking about the management plan, the key message is that the management should be effective, it should be implementable, it should be carried out. So, when we are talking about the heritage, we are talking also about buffer zone, we will come to the buffer zone, but when we are talking about a conservation plan and the primary plans are the management plan. So, one is a conservation plan and management plans talks about that how it will be the maintained, what will be the resources, who will do that, who are the agencies involved, and under that there can be secondary plans which can sort of simultaneously should be taken up. There should be a landscape or environmental plan. I am taking the example of some risk management plan. There are different types of, there is the interpretation and the visitor management, which is very important, that how the tourists will come and how it will be interpreted and how this tourist management should be taken care of. And there is also a comprehensive mobility plan, that how much people will the vehicles will be allowed, how they will approach, what are the security. So, these are the separate and depending on the site characteristic, the secondary plans also are very important. So, the conservation plan management happens in the upper level and then that should be detailed out more in the landscape plan, risk management plan, interpretive plan, and depending on a specificity of a site or situation, there can be some more specific plans can be required. So, this is what when we talk about the management of the site and when we are talking about the setting. Now, we will talk more about the setting, because that is where I started with, that something happens in the vicinity, then that may endanger the World Heritage status of a site. Before going to that, as I said, the visitor management is a very important issue, because the moment it is a World Heritage site, it becomes the visibility of the site increases, it becomes an international status and people like to travel. So, like Venice and other areas, it is really a problem that when it is many sites where unmanageable visitors are coming, which itself is threatening the OAV or the attributes of the site, but you can't stop the visitor. So, what we are talking about is the visitors management. For example, if you talk about Ajanta Ellora, these are the cave. We know there are the cave paintings within Ajanta Ellora, and what happens is that when a lot of people enter into a cave at a specific time, what happens, their breathing, the body temperature and other, that actually builds up within the cave, and that has a very negative effect on the painting. So, what has been done by archaeological survey is that to have a restrict the number of visitors who can at one time can come to a site. Now, this has to be scientifically tested, that what is the maximum number of visitors who can be allowed. Now, one hand we can have a research, we can say that this is the maximum number of visitors should be allowed, and after that there should be a control. So, this control is very important, but again how it will be implemented to the site, one has to also see this counting of the visitors, that after that number reaches they should be sort of no more visitors should be allowed, and associated with that the resting places, the waiting places, all these things are very important, and it should not even happen at just the entrance of the cave. It should be planned much beforehand, that how the mobility or how the visitors will be taken. And some of the sites which they do is that they also have a ticketing systems which have to record or make an appointment from before. So, after it reaches a certain thing, you have to go to the next day or next time slot. So, this is possible. It is not that the visitors should be stopped, but what we are talking about, the visitors management, how they will approach, till what distance the car can come or what distance the walking is allowed, pollution free vehicles and other things. So, the visitor management is a very important part of the management. So, and this is definitely becoming a major issue of most of the World Heritage properties. These should be consistent with and sympathetic to the protection, conservation and management of the potential outstanding universal value addresses a part. Now, if you can see that here is in Kerala, the Aleppi, the backwater areas where a lot of tourist boards are happening, and the reports are coming out that because of the tourist board, I mean not so much of management policy about the taking care of the pollution it is creating to the water, it is really going out of hand. So, one has to see that what can be the long term impact of having the visitors, and what should be the precautionary measures which should be taken. And many of the sites we know that especially during the festival times and other, a lot of visitors come, and that definitely contributes to the economy of the local economy and other, but it should not go beyond. So, there is something called the carrying capacity. So, how should we manage is a very important aspect of the management. So, now management is a planning process. What we discussed is that it should be a very transparent and it should have the various issues it should address. The principal objective of the management planning process is a strategic long term protection of the cultural heritage sites. We must remember that there is a long term plan which has to be done, and a fundamental part of this is developing a framework for decision making or for managing the change. One must remember that we are talking about managing the change. I have given you the references, you can talk about that. So, there are basically three elements: the institutional, the legal and the resources. So, these are the three elements, the legal framework, institution and the resources, which are the basic three elements of the planning process. And the second is the three processes: the monitoring, the implementation and the planning. These are the three processes where these three elements what we talk about, they facilitate in this process of planning, implementation and monitoring of the action for a single cultural property or a group of cultural property. And because of that we will have certain results. So, the results are the outputs, it can be the improvements and the outcomes which we have to see. So, deliver the results which guarantee that the conservation and management of the properties and their associated values are preserved in a sustainable way. So, this is these elements, process and the result, this is a very important framework for the management. Now, while we are talking about management, as we started talking about that, we also said that there is to be a buffer zone, which really when we are talking about the setting. So, what is the buffer zone? Let us talk about Chittorgarh. Chittorgarh is one of the serial nomination of the forts of Rajasthan, which is now on the World Heritage site, and you can see that there are even within the fort area lot of people are staying within this area. It's not just, it is just a uninhabited forest area. So, and so it's very important, and immediately outside the fort area there are also the other areas which also the development must take place, but how, that is a very important thing. So, as we see that the green area here is the buffer zone which has been inscribed. It is like putting a cushion around something which is very important. It is not that nothing will happen to the cushion, but that cushion is actually giving an extra protection to maintain the or ensure that the attributes are continue to be there, are maintained. What is example in Chittorgarh, as you can see that Chittorgarh fort and these buildings which are there, any vertical expansion of this building will interfere with the visibility of the Chittorgarh fort, which is one of the attribute for which it has been declared. So, now it is not that we can't say the people you go away from that area, yes, but we can't say that, but at the same time we must see that what type of legal instruments should be there, so that these basic attribute is not interfere with it. So, that is why the delineation of the buffer zone, how much will be the buffer zone, is very important, and also it is important to understand that it is not that nothing will happen in the buffer zone. Buffer zone is actually a planned change which should take care of the attributes of the protected area for which it is acting as a buffer zone. So, do the buffer zone adjacent to the World Heritage Site properties respond to the dynamic changes and challenges to the contemporary world, because they are living areas, threats due to the global warming, social and economic development, political pressure. So, all these issues or the key question should be addressed, should be looked into when we are talking about the buffer zone management and placing or sort of guidelines for the buffer zone management. So, there is a in Xi'an declaration which was adopted in 2005, you can refer to that, and that really talks about the buffer zone management, what is the buffer zone and what is the buffer zone management. So, this is, it talks about the setting of a heritage structure, site or area, and it also talk about the how that setting is contributing to the thing, and so it is the acknowledgement of that and understanding that for making a framework or guideline for the buffer zone management. We will talk about very quickly a particular important site which is a World Heritage Site in India, which is one of the best practice, because how it has managed the World Heritage Site, the Humayun's Tomb World Heritage Site. And you can see that when it is there, it is a World Heritage Site. This is this is the Humayun's Tomb, which all is garden, but outside there it is a residential area which is the Nizamuddin Basti, and there is Shunda Nursery which is there, which is also from the British era, which is a nursery. So, when Humayun's Tomb management plan is taken care of, it is incorporating all these three: the Humayun's Tomb itself with the garden, the Nizamuddin area which is a community, the people staying there, the Nizamuddin Basti and the Shunda Nursery. So, the management of this is that how it has been an inclusive approach, it is taking care of these three. I will just quickly give you an idea of that. A narrow street in the Nizamuddin Basti, as you can see that, because Xi'an declaration talks about the understanding, document and interpret the setting in diverse contexts, because the contexts are so varied, we can't sort of say just one framework, it has to be evolved from a particular site context. Then also we have to talk about the planning tools and practices to conserve and manage the setting, and also monitor and manage the change affecting the setting. Now, this Nizamuddin Basti, which is, as you see, in a narrow street, the people staying there, there is the Dargah which is there, all of these are part of the management of the Humayun's Tomb, because what is saying that the working with the local, interdisciplinary and international communities for cooperation, awareness, conserving and management is a very important part of that. So, as we see the Nizamuddin Basti, we see the Dargah, which is a very important cultural part and also physical. It is not a World Heritage Site, but it forms within the buffer zone, and all the activities there are now integrated with the Humayun's Tomb and also taking care of the community which are surrounding there. There are also heritage awareness walk which takes around the children and the people around that. There are the summer learning camp from the Shunda Nursery for the landscape area. There are the streets play involving the local people. There is also capacity building, the training the local people, making the health and hygiene programs for the other people, involving the local people, the community of the Nizamuddin Basti in the different types of crafts work and other. So, it is a total inclusive approach. So, buffer zone is just not physical delineation or restricting a height or something, it is the different varied types of community which are there and how that can be integrated along with the attributes of the World Heritage Site. This is a very important initiative, the Nizamuddin Urban Renewal Initiative. If you are interested, you can look up that and can see that how it has really become a very good example of how the social participatory inclusive approach can be done in the buffer zone of the World Heritage Site. Now, as we just say, the craftsmanship is one of the important that which has been trained, the participatory management plan which is a part of the this initiative involving the local people, the visitors, involving them, the visitor management, which part they will see, how they will come, what type of festival, what type of activities, and also preservation of the additional buildings which are not a part of the World Heritage Site, but they are important for the local people or make up the cultural landscape of that area. So, their festival activities, many of the things are being encouraged and all is around the value of the Humayun's tomb, and it is working both ways. And various legislation, even for Humayun's tomb you can see that there are so many acts which are there, Archaeological Remains Land, the Land Acquisition Act, Delhi Municipal Corporation, the Urban Land Ceiling Act. So, a lot of acts which are important. So, it is very important to see them and put together and see how they can work in coordination with other. Another is the tomb and the garden. This is also now partnership which talked about. It is a ASI protected site, but here the Tata Foundation and Aga Khan Foundation, they really work together to give the resources, and also resources in form of the craftsmanship skill came from outside and also training of the local craftsmen. So, Humayun's tomb and the Nizamuddin initiative which was done under Aga Khan project, and it's a fantastic example of the heritage and the management of the World Heritage Site, all the issues, key issues and how they can be taken up, and it's an ongoing process. And so, in summary, the management of a property should have a realistic vision of the medium to long term future of the property, including the changes and challenges that could arise from inscription of the World Heritage Site. So, one should be prepared beforehand and it should work go through, and management plans and documented system should be put forward as tried and tested arrangements rather than just paper plans that will be implemented in the future. So, it is an ongoing learning process, and again I am saying that it is there are manuals, there are case studies, and in our own country there is a very good initiative which has been taken and taken as one of the best example of how the management can be done in an integrated way. So, this is what in a nutshell is the third arm of the World Heritage Sites, where the management plays a very important role, visitors management and other. Again I am saying that the reference are there, and also another very important reference is the operational guidelines which I will share with you, and that is also very important apart from some of the manuals which I have mentioned, which one can refer in the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Thank you.